It's considered a win for Republicans. The state Supreme Court has decided to take up a redistricting case. The court's conservative majority said it will favor an approach that would make the least changes to current maps. Republicans have been firmly in control of both chambers under the maps they drew and passed in 2011. We're talking about what this means now for Wisconsin politics with Milwaukee Journal Sentinel politics and State House reporter Patrick Marley. Patrick, it's always good to have you with us on the show. What do you think are the political implications of the justices saying we want to limit the changes here?
Although we haven't seen the actual maps that they'll adopt yet, this is a huge win for Republicans because they're effectively saying that they will pass maps that are close to identical to the ones that we have now, which were drawn, as you said in your intro, when Republicans controlled all of state government and that greatly favor their party.
And what would that mean for Democrats going forward?
What that means is that you can imagine there will be a pretty firm grip of Republican control on the legislature for the next decade. The maps that they have not only favor them, but sort of protect them from Democratic wave years. So in a year where you would have Democrats doing particularly well, where they win all statewide races by large margins, they probably won't be able to crack into a majority, even a small majority in either house. So it's sort of an insulation for Republicans in the legislature.
And conservative Justice Brian Hagedorn wrote that he saw room for the court to make some judgment calls on the maps. So is there any indication of what these maps will look like? I mean, I know we said hardly any changes, but he left a little bit of room open there.
That's true. So the decision was 4-3 with the 4 conservative justices, the ones who were elected with Republican backing in the majority, and the 3 justices who were elected with Democratic backing in the minority. Justice Hagedorn, who has split with the conservatives on some high-profile cases, did differ somewhat. There were some parts of this decision that he did not sign on to, but we're really talking about things on the margins. What he said was that the lead opinion says that really the court can only consider things like the Voting Rights Act and the contiguousness of districts can only take things that are strictly in state law that they can consider. And Justice Hagedorn said, well, we can consider a little bit more than that. For instance, a community of interest, we can take into account whether that should be split up. But he adopts the overall view that there should be as few changes as possible. So the Democrats don't get a lot of victory from that concurrent opinion.
And, you know, federal courts have had a hand in redistricting in Wisconsin, and Democrats filed a federal lawsuit. So what impact could that have, if any?
Yeah, the federal court is waiting in the wings here. I think after the state Supreme Court finalizes the maps, which, would probably be early 2022, the Democrats will get another run at this in federal court. However, the parameters will likely be very much narrowed. They may be able to attack certain parts of the maps that are adopted, but not the entire map. Probably their best route will be to focus on the Voting Rights Act, which is a federal law that protects districts with majorities of Black voters and Hispanic voters. So you could see further change after the state Supreme Court happens, but in the short term and probably the medium term, this is a big win for Republicans.
And in the immediate future, what's next?
So next, the litigants will be presenting their own maps. So Governor Evers can put forward a map. The Republicans will likely put forward their maps that were vetoed by Governor Evers. There's a lot of third-party groups that are involved in this case, either that are nonpartisan or aligned with Democrats, and actually the ones who brought the case are aligned with Republicans. They'll all be presenting maps. So the court's going to get a bunch of maps that they're going to have to wade through and then figure out if they accept one set of those maps, or if they use one of those as a starting point and draw their own maps.
And hindsight is 2020, but I'm wondering if there's any talk, if looking back, maybe the governor is wishing he would have gone about this differently.
Well, things are not very good for him now. I don't know what other options he would have had. Of course, Governor Evers created this commission, which was non-binding to draw these maps that he said was going to be done in a nonpartisan fashion. The Republican legislators largely ignored those maps. Some Democrats turned against those maps. So they got the full backing of Governor Evers, but not a lot of support otherwise. But Governor Evers didn't have a lot of options here. Republicans were clear from the beginning that they were going to draw their own maps. They did not seem interested in talking with him. Of course, Governor Evers and the leaders of the legislature hardly ever talk. So we never really saw any movement for anything but this outcome where it would wind up in court.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Patrick Marley, always appreciate your reporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Former State Supreme Court Justice Mike Gableman, who is leading a probe of the 2020 election, says he's taking steps to force the mayors of Green Bay and Madison to testify. You'll find the story from our editorial partner, WisPolitics, on the Battleground Wisconsin blog at wispolitics.com. Coming up, the Wisconsin tourist destination trying to get ahead of the worker shortage.